Hey, welcome back to the Modern Math Teacher podcast. Today, we're diving into a topic that has become a real game changer in the world of education, and that is cultivating a growth mindset. I'm Kristen Moore, your host here in the Modern Math Teacher podcast. And today, I'm excited to share with you a bunch of strategies that you can use to cultivate a growth mindset. And all of them come from none other than the amazing, incredible Dr. Jo Boaler. Now, many of us have heard about the importance of a growth mindset, right? Especially when it comes to helping our students embrace challenges and develop resilience. But what does that actually mean? And how can we ensure that we are truly fostering a growth mindset in our classroom? Well, that's what we're going to talk about today. In today's episode, we are going to explore the work from Dr. Jo Boaler on growth mindset and her practical strategies for implementing it. Plus, we're going to break down some common misconceptions about what growth mindset is and what it isn't. You might be surprised how often this concept is misunderstood. Are you up for it? Let's get to it. Now, before we dive in to Bowler's specific strategies, let's start with the basics. What is a growth mindset and what isn't it? This is key for us because as teachers, we sometimes think we're promoting a growth mindset when actually we might be doing the opposite. A growth mindset, as defined by the amazing Carol Dweck and expanded upon in Jo Boaler's work, is the belief that abilities like intelligence, creativity, and yes, even math skills can be developed through dedication, effort, and learning from our mistakes. It's about focusing on growth rather than being naturally gifted, smart, a math person, any of those labels. In a growth mindset, we view challenges as opportunities to learn and grow, not as threats to our ability. So, with that in mind, let's talk. What isn't a growth mindset? Here are some of the misconceptions that I often hear educators saying. Number one, just praise the effort. This is a big one, you guys, okay? While it is important to praise effort, it is not simply enough to say, good job trying, without addressing the quality of that effort. A true growth mindset encourages not just effort, but effective effort. So that means things like trying different strategies, reflecting on what works and what doesn't, and improving through feedback. Simply praising effort for the sake of it can be unintentionally reinforcing those poor learning habits if we don't couple it with feedback on strategies and thinking. Another big one I hear is that a growth mindset is about being positive all the time. Now, that's another misunderstanding that is fostering growth mindset means everything is positive and upbeat no matter what. That's not real life. A growth mindset is actually about acknowledging struggles and mistakes. It's about being realistic and honest, recognizing that something is difficult, but knowing that with persistence and the right approach, progress can be made. Students need to understand that setbacks are part of the learning process, and struggling doesn't mean that they're not smart. It means that their brain is working and growing. And the last big one I hear is, well, if you have a growth mindset, you'll never feel discouraged. Well, hate to break it to you, but even with a growth mindset, students and teachers are going to have moments of frustration and self doubt. And that's okay. The key difference is that with a growth mindset, these moments don't define a person's abilities or their potential, okay? Instead, they're just part of the process. So if your students or even you feel discouraged, that's okay. The goal is to help them understand that they can bounce back from their challenges, not avoid feeling them in the first place. Now, with that foundation in mind and those misconceptions out of the way, let's turn to Jo Boaler's strategy for nurturing a true growth mindset in your classroom. And if you're anything like me, you may have been following Jo Boaler forever. I have, I think, probably all of her books here, whether it's, What's Math Got to Do with It, a longtime fave from forever ago, Experiencing School Mathematics, the revised edition, or if you're on YouTube, you can see Mathematical Mindsets, my tried and true fave. The amount of sticky notes I have in here is just insane. It is. It's okay. But from there, from all of her work and from her courses, I have found out that there are some key strategies that you can use to help embrace challenges and learn from mistakes. So if you don't have time to go through and read all of those books, let me summarize up for you here, and we'll talk about how to cultivate a growth mindset with 5 different strategies from the books. Let's go ahead and unpack them. All right. Number one strategy I want you to do is to normalize mistakes. Mistakes are part of life. One of Bowler's central ideas is that mistakes are valuable. Okay. Students often believe that when they're making the mistakes, it means that they aren't good at math. But Bowler's research shows that making mistakes actually helps the brain to grow. Okay. One powerful strategy is to normalize mistakes as part of everyday learning. This can be as simple as saying, like, oh, mistakes, just like I did there. Mistakes are how our brains get stronger. Or making mistakes means you're pushing yourself. It's also helpful to share stories of your own mistakes and how you've learned from them. This is also going to humanize that process for your students. Now, number two, foster a love of challenges. Okay. In a growth mindset classroom, challenges are embraced, not avoided. So, to foster this mindset, you want to reframe difficult problems as opportunities to push themselves and to grow. Instead of saying, this is hard, but we have to do it, try saying something like, this problem is a chance for us to stretch our thinking and improve. It also helps to explicitly teach your students that the brains are growing stronger when they're tackling these harder problems. Saying something like, every time we struggle with a difficult problem, our brains are building new connections, and that's going to help us solve problems in the future. This is going to encourage your students to see these challenges as an opportunity rather than just something to avoid. You can also incorporate challenge tasks into your lessons. So, Bowler suggests offering a low floor, high ceiling task, something that students can start, but it also provides deeper challenges for those students who can push it further. This is going to help ensure that every student, no matter what their starting point, is engaged and feel like they can contribute, and that builds on that positive culture in your classroom. When you're using these challenge tasks, you can, of course, incorporate all of the discourse strategies we've talked about in episode 65 to share out these ideas and help students start making those connections. And that actually brings me to number three, which is encourage mathematical discussions. Guys, another strategy from Bowler's work is to create opportunities for your students to dialogue and discourse in class. When your students talk through their mathematical thinking with their peers, they're more likely to identify their mistakes, explain their reasoning, reflect on their learning and their thought process, and all that built in metacognition. You can use a simple strategy like the turn and talk or a small group discussion where your students share how they approached a problem and what they learned from their mistakes. Sometimes having sentence starters can help make this easier to implement in the classroom if it's something new that you are trying. When your students are doing this, these conversations are a critical part of developing a growth mindset because they help your students articulate their thinking and reflect on how they can improve and the strategies that they use. To make this even more effective, I want you to think about asking process focused questions like, how did you get that answer? Or what did you try when your first method didn't work? That's going to shift the focus away from just getting the right answer and back into what was that learning process. And all of this can be facilitated through strategy number four, using open ended tasks. Buller emphasizes the use of open ended, rich tasks in the classroom. And we have seen an influx of teachers utilizing these strategies recently, which is amazing that all of us are now incorporating this research backed approach. Now, these open ended, rich tasks are going to allow our students to explore multiple ways of solving a problem and to realize that there isn't just one right way to approach math, which is crucial here. It's not just about the right answer, it's about being able to use their math thinking and reasoning and problem solving to arrive at an answer. This strategy is going to help students feel more confident in experimenting and developing their own problem solving methods. For example, instead of giving a traditional worksheet where your students solve the same problem over and over and over again, give them an open ended task like create a system of equations that would model a real world situation you're interested in. And of course, give them some ideas on what that could be. The open endedness of that task allows your students to engage with math creatively and reinforces the idea that math is a process of discovery, not a process of memorization of formulas. And finally, number five, the fifth strategy for cultivating a growth mindset is to praise the process, not the person. Remember, when you are giving feedback, it's important that you focus on the process, not the person. So instead of saying, "You're really good at this," try saying, "Wow, I noticed how you kept trying different strategies until you found one that worked." That is a great problem solving strategy, emphasizing the strategy or the process, not the person. So, that type of feedback is going to highlight the behaviors and the thought processes that lead to success rather than suggesting that success comes from inherent or innate ability. Boler calls this process praise and reinforces the idea that anyone can improve through hard work and smart use of their strategies. All right, you guys, to wrap things up, cultivating a growth mindset takes more than just talking about effort and staying positive. It's about embracing our challenges, normalizing mistakes, and encouraging deep process focused thinking in your classroom. Jo Boaler strategies offer powerful ways to make that happen, especially in math classrooms where students feel anxious and believe that they just aren't good at math or they aren't math people. Now, if you're ready to start cultivating a growth mindset with your students, remember these key takeaways from today's episode. Encourage effective effort by praising strategies and perseverance, not just effort alone. Normalize mistakes and show students how their brains grow through these challenges. Use open ended tasks and collaborative discussions to deepen mathematical thinking and focus feedback on process, not personal ability. By applying these strategies, you're not only going to help your students succeed in math, but you're also going to teach them the valuable skills for learning and growing in everyday life. Thanks so much, you guys, for joining me today as I went in on a little love fest for Jo Boaler and how you can create and cultivate that growth mindset in your classroom. Don't forget to check out this week's show notes for links to Jo Boaler's books. I have, like I said, pretty much all of them. You'll find most of them linked here, including her book, Mathematical Mindsets, and ideas for strategies to use in the classroom. If this episode was helpful, share it with a colleague and let me know how you're implementing these strategies in your own classroom. Until next time, keep pushing the boundaries of what's possible in math education, keep fostering that growth mindset, and as always, you guys, keep it real. I'll see you next time.